and we're delighted to have John Padilla with us from IPD. John, good to have you here. It's 23 years. You've been all of these, right?
Always good to be here. It's fantastic. Never a boring minute.
Oh, thank you. I know you're based in Bogota now, but let's talk about Mexico, because I know you follow Mexico. Historic reforms. How big a deal are these reforms? I mean, just the constitutional amendment, just broadly, how big a deal?
This is far and away the most historic reforms that Mexico has undertaken, certainly in the past century. In Spanish, you would say it's la madre de las reformas. It's the mother of reforms. And it's bigger than just energy. Energy is the conduit, but it's not the end game.
So what's the rest of the year look like? We had the constitutional amendments last December. We have implementing legislation, secondary legislation submitted, June debating in Congress. We're not sure exactly. What's the rest of the year look like? And just broadly, and then I want to ask a specific question when you look at that. And we heard Gustavo Hernandez, the head of Pemex E&P, earlier today make a pretty interesting statement. He said they will have they will have partnerships in place by the end of this year. So this year unfolds. How does this year unfold? And are we really going to see Pemex in partnership by the end of this year with new players?
Well, I think the thing to understand is that this has been a politically driven reform. And so getting all of the actors on board has been a monumental challenge, and it's been a testament, I think, to this administration and their capacity to kind of keep all of the players in line. That was something that, quite frankly, the two previous PAN administrations were unable to do.
Right.
And Peña Nieto, when as he was campaigning, he went to New York. Did the exact same interview that former President Felipe Calderon did with Bloomberg, and said the difference is that we're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so it was a very bold statement.
Right. Nixon goes to China, right?
Exactly, but at the same time, it was something that so far they've been able to follow through with. And now the way that the reform was unfolded, I think there was a lot of people that scratched their heads as to why Round Zero came out first, but it was something that it was under their control. And the congressional process is something that's a little less in their control. That being said, there's obviously a lot of political pressure to both on Congress as well as the different governmental bodies that are involved to get this to happen. So I think Gustavo Hernandez said that we expect that there will be partnerships before the end of the year. I think that it's indicative of the pressure that is being placed not only on Pemex, but then also on the Secretary of Energy, CNH, a new environmental regulator that doesn't even exist right now, or the ANSIPA, which is going to be part of the Semarnat umbrella. And there's new roles. So there's new roles for Secretary of Energy, new roles for CNH, the regulator CNH and CRE. So I think that part of this is going to be a little bit clunky, but I look at it much more from the macro perspective, and the macro perspective says that everybody's on board, we're moving this forward, and getting too tied up in the we as consultants and others.
That's what people pay you for, right?
We dig down into the detail and we say that's not exactly what you said it was going to be.
Right.
But I think from a macro perspective, we're very much on track.
So let's end with something we've talked a lot about oil and gas, and clearly that really has been the huge piece of this. I mean, the reform is massive across the entire energy chain. But the thing I want to ask you about is I've heard it called a green reform. This energy reform is a green reform, which of course is a nod to incorporating more renewable sustainability. But what does that really mean? Help enlighten me on that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of civil right now, in the sense that on one hand, Mexico is very interested in embracing alternative energies, renewables, bringing them into the mix. And the reality is that Mexico is chock full of opportunity sets, whether it's for wind, geothermal, world-class solar, world-class wind. And so those opportunity sets exist. The question is how are you going to bring them into the mix? How are you going to incentivize that level of activity? Because on one hand, politically, they've said that they're going to lower energy prices.
Right,
Let's be clear.
right.
People have interpreted that then to be electricity prices.
Well, they have said Lucy gas.
And so the question is how do you actually make that happen when the subsidized residential users are already receiving
Right.
Much lower electricity prices than they are in the rest of North America. So the issue that you have then is, and Mexico at the same time is trying to lower its subsidies,
Right.
or eliminate them.
Right.
So they've done a very good job at lowering gas subsidies,
Gasoline,
LPG subsidies, to the point now where they're quite small at the present time. You don't have the same cyclicality as you have in the U.S. And so that factors into the equation. Point is that I think that the administration thus far has been a little bit cagey about it, and rightfully so.
Right.
The low cost energy is certainly going to come from natural gas, and the question is for the administration is being too dependent on natural gas,
Right.
because it doesn't have a lot of other resources. I mean, you have hydro, makes up about 20%. You've got coal, but you've got dirty coal in the north that you blend. You bring in coal from Lázaro Cárdenas, but it's not. Those aren't the mixes.
Yeah.
And so when you have these world-class alternative resources, and the cost of operation of solar, of wind, is going down so quickly. I think they're trying to capture that.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, going back to the very first comment, which is that energy reform is just the conduit.
Yeah.
The point here is that what was the first thing that we saw right after energy reform? You had a rating upgrade by Moody's, and S&P then followed suit. I think it was in February.
Yeah.
The point is that this administration seems to believe that growing the pie will kind of fix a lot of those ills. And so as you get more funding sources, as you have access to cheaper, both domestic, that was part of the financial reform, as well as international funding sources, then renewables will absolutely fit into the mix. But I think we're going to have to wait and see what the reglamentos include, and also what the final contracts are.
So 2014 is getting ducks in a row, if you will.
Absolutely.
But at least we're finally getting ducks to line up.
No,
huh?
I mean we've all been waiting for ducks to be in alignment for more years than I think we all like to think. And but it's here. It's exciting, and there's going to be just a huge opportunity set for big, small, and everybody in between.
Yeah. Well, best of luck. Thanks so much for joining us again this year, John.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.